Luke has him giving a longer speech than in Matthew, Mark, or John. So I'm going to begin with Luke. And Pilate when he had called together the chief priests and the rulers and the people, said to them, "You have brought this man to me as one that perverts the people. And, behold, I, having examined him before you, have found no fault in this man touching those things whereof you accuse him. No, nor yet Herod. For I sent you to him, and, lo, nothing worthy of death is done to him." After that, Luke says, "I will therefore chastise him and release him." And then they cry out and ask for Barabbas. I forgot that there was an introduction from Matthew and Mark as well. Matthew has, "Therefore when they had gathered together, Pilate said to them." Mark, "But Pilate answered them, saying." John doesn't have it, so just Matthew and Mark. "Therefore when they had gathered together," or "But Pilate answered and said." I'm going to go with Mark, because Mark has the statements, "the multitude crying aloud, desiring him to do whatever he had done to them." Instead of just him going along with it, he does have this statement, "You brought me this man, he's innocent." So I want to go with "but" instead of "and" or "therefore." Therefore, when they were gathered together. I'm going to have the name first, Pilate, from Matthew and Mark. As well as Luke. So that would be gray. Pilate answered them, saying. Mark doesn't have them gathered. Matthew does, when they were gathered together. When he had called. And not just he had called, they were gathered, because Luke doesn't include this statement from Mark, that the multitude were crying aloud, asking him to release Barabbas at first, as Mark does. So, if they're already crying aloud, they're already gathered. It doesn't make as much sense to have when he had gathered them, since they've already been gathered and crying to him. But it sort of makes more sense from Matthew, when they were gathered together. Neither of them are perfect, but I think Matthew's better. When they were gathered instead of when he had called together. When is both. Matthew and Luke, they were gathered. I'm just replacing he had called with Matthew. Together is both. Matthew gathered together. Pilate said to them. Mark, Pilate answered them. saying. I think answered actually makes more sense. Because again, this statement is only in Mark. They were crying aloud. So instead of said, I'm going to have answered them. Answered from Mark. This them is in all three. And said or saying. Mark has saying. Said to them. I want to have saying from Mark. But Pilate, when he had gathered together the chief priests and the rulers and the people, answered them, saying, You have brought this man to me as one that perverts the people. I missed something. I didn't realize changing he had gathered to they were gathered messes up the rest of the statement, the chief priests. I can't say, when they were gathered, the chief priests. Doesn't make any sense. But if I switch who these are with being gathered, I can still say were gathered. When the chief priests and the rulers of the people then were gathered, I have to leave off they, but were gathered has to be at the end. Were gathered together. But Pilate, when the chief priests and the rulers of the people were gathered together, then answered them, saying, Luke 23:20, Pilate therefore, willing to release Jesus, spoke again to them. Therefore, willing to release Jesus, spoke again to them. I think I should get rid of release because that was already mentioned here. Whether the two, will you that I release to you, it's already clear that he wants to release him. And again, here in Matthew, Luke, and John, I will therefore chastise and release to you Jesus, which is called Christ. Perhaps this statement, therefore willing to release Jesus, spoke again to them. Perhaps that spoke again to them is this question. This second question. He said first, I will release Jesus. They said no. So then he sits down and offers Barabbas or Jesus. Perhaps this is that second offer. And then it just skips them crying out for Barabbas, not Jesus. And now it jumps right to, in Luke, over what should I do then with Jesus? And it just goes right to their response, crucify him. Yeah, I think I'm going to do that. Is there any place I can put willing to release Jesus? Oh, I know. I'll put it right here at the beginning. But Pilate willing to release Jesus when the chief priests and the rulers and the people gathered together. Yeah, because that shows his attitude from the very beginning. So I'll put it there. And I know I'm still having this word release here. But I think it's okay because that's what he speaks down here. This is his thought. But Pilate, willing to release Jesus, when the chief priests and the elders of the people were gathered together, answered them, saying, You have brought this man to me. Yeah.